So this is not just a political episode, because this is more like a personal for me as well. Because we even like before we even get started, I need to say this. It's because a lot of people need to understand. Like I didn't grow up questioning the church. And again, I grew up in Colombia, very heavily Catholic. Everything we did had some form of Catholic view. Everybody every Christmas, did their. Oh, actually, leading up to Christmas, we did las velitas, if you know what I mean. And you have to sing in front of the nativity scene and all that. So, anyways, so I knew what Catholic Church was. I grew up inside of it. And I sang in the pews. I bowed my head. I believed them when they said, love thy neighbor. I was baptized. I had communion. I did all that stuff. But at some point, I had to confront the fact that not everyone was considered a neighbor, according to the church. That some people, for example, queer people, trans people, anyone who didn't fit in the mold, were seen as a threat. Not as children of God, not as humans, but as threats. And then when I saw that, and I heard that, when I really saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Because it wasn't just judgment, it was straight up hate. And the hate was being sold in the language of protection. And that's what this episode really is also about. I mean, I already mentioned that, but let's start with our first part, where it started, and where this started. So let's go back all the way back in Florida, 1977. I know, Florida, of course. The year a woman named Anita Bryant launched a campaign called the Save Our Children. And I want you to really hear the name of that campaign, because that's the exact same language being used today. And what was Bryant's goal? To overturn a local ordinance that protected gay people from discrimination in housing and employment. Her reasoning? Gay people are recruiting kids. Gay teachers are indoctrinating students. Queer people are dangerous, especially around children. Does that sound familiar? And she went on TV. She got pastors behind her, and her campaign worked. The ordinance was repealed. She became a hero to the religious right. And she said she laid the foundation for the idea that queerness equals danger. And this was never about proven harm. It was about a moral panic. It was about making people afraid of the other and using children as the shield. So then in the 1980s came, and with it, the AIDS crisis. Oh my gosh, it gets good. It gets bad, guys. Tens of thousands of people were dying. And instead of compassion, we got silence and condemnation. President Reagan, of course, didn't even say the word AIDS publicly until 1985, years into the epidemic. Churches call it the gay plague. Sorry, I can't. Disgusting what these people are saying. And pastors went on air and said AIDS was God's punishment for sin. They say this every time something happens. COVID was the same thing. And here's the kicker. They weren't just blaming people for being sick. They were reinforcing the idea that LGBTQ plus folks were inherently dangerous. And suddenly gay people weren't just immoral. They were diseased, contagious, filthy. They were demonized in the media, mocked in late night TV, and completely abandoned by the same institution that preached love and grace, or love thy neighbor. And this is where the idea that queer people were a public health threat took root. And I want you to remember this. When people want to erase a group, they start by convincing others that the group is a danger. A danger to your values, a danger to your children, a danger to your safety. And the 1980s was the decade of fear, and it was weaponized. I mean, a war on gay people, war on drugs, war on crime. I mean, my goodness. So, and then we move into the 90s. The church didn't back off. It doubled down. The family values movement exploded. Pat Robertson, Jerry Falwell, the rise of the evangelical media. And with it, the new villain became gay rights movement itself. Every push for equality was framed as a threat to this traditional family, and children were always the excuse. You probably heard this one. If we let this is what they said. If we let gay people adopt, what kind of example would they set? Or what if they're just doing it to get access to kids? The same old lie, rebranded for a new era. And then came California's Prop A in 2008. It banned same-sex marriage after it had already been legalized. How did they get voters to support it? By running ads showing kids coming home from school saying, "My teacher said 2 men can get married." That was the whole play. Scare parents, push the panic button. They're coming for your kids. And now let's fast forward to the 2010s and 2020s. Once gay marriage was legalized nationally in 2015, they needed a new target. So they pivoted to trans people, especially trans youth. And suddenly it was all about bathrooms. We can't let trans women into women's restrooms. We have to protect our daughters. It was never about bathrooms. It was about visibility. It was about fear. The moment trans folks started existing publicly in media, in schools, and conversations, the right flipped the switch. And just like before, they used children as the excuse all the time. Trans people are confused. They're mentally ill. They're being manipulated, is what they will yell. Or they're gonna rape your kids, is what they said all the time. And it was that if that wasn't enough, they brought back the word groomer. God, every time. Now anyone who supported trans kids or affirmed their identity or dared say the word non-binary in a classroom was labeled a groomer. Teachers, parents, doctors, all under attack. It wasn't just hate, it was targeted erasure. And let's get current. Let's talk about the last few years. The Florida's Don't Say Gay law passed in 2022 by the awesome Governor DeSantis, who's the biggest piece of shit you ever seen. If you believe in heaven and hell, he has a special place in hell. Suddenly, you couldn't even acknowledge that gay people exist in the classroom without the risk of being reported. Books got banned again. Teachers got fired, of course. Counselors couldn't talk about gender identity because why not? And it didn't stop in Florida. Dozens of states jumped on board. Over 500 anti-LGBTQ plus bills introduced in 2023 alone, and is the most in U.S. history. Why? Because once they labeled queer people as groomers, they could do anything. Ban their books, erase them from schools, demonize them in church, and call it protection. This wasn't about safety. It was a moral purge, hiding behind children of every time. They used children as shields. And here's what really pisses me off. While all of this is happening, while drag performers are being called predators for reading green eggs and ham, and while teachers are being harassed for having a rainbow sticker or everybody's welcome sign in their schools, you know who the real predator is? They're still protected, still employed, still preaching. Let's start with one. The Catholic Church has paid over $3 billion in sexual abuse settlements. That's billion with the capital B. Then we go with the next one. Then with the other capital B. The Southern Baptist Convention had over 700 ministers and volunteers accused of abuse between 1998 and 2018. And many were kept in place or quietly moved to other churches. Jehovah's Witness? Same story. Massive cover-ups, documented cases, lawsuits, silence. But where's the outrage? Where's the governors holding a press conference about that? Where's the law banning clergy for working with kids until they pass background checks? Because there isn't one. Because that would mean holding power accountable. And let's be real, they don't want that. They want control. They want obedience. And they want to be the only ones allowed to speak. And they want everyone else silenced. So yeah, the word groomer has meaning. It means abuse. It means manipulation. And it means trauma. But it also means turn into a political slur. And a deadly one. Because when you label someone a danger to children, you're not just canceling them, you're putting a target on their back. This lie has cost people their jobs, it's driven kids to suicide, it's fueled harassment, violence, censorship, and fear. All while the real predators keep getting away with it. One is president, so go figure. So if you're one of the folks who claims to care about protecting children, start with the churches. Start with the institutions that actually cover up abuse for decades. And maybe, just maybe, stop using kids as human shields for your political fear-mongering. You fucking cowards. Because in the next segment, we're going there. We're pulling back this curtain on the actual stats. The documented abuse, the cover-ups, the lawsuits, the systemic silence in religious institutions. Because it's time to stop pretending that the danger is in the library. It's not. It's in the churches.